The smell of warm butter and freshly baked croissants filled the air as I yanked open the heavy oven door at Southern Whisk Bakery. The pre-dawn light barely kissed the cobblestone streets of Savannah, Georgia, but inside my shop it felt like the sun itself had taken residence. I wiped the sweat from my brow, inspecting the perfectly golden pastries, and smiled until the bell above the front door chimed. I turned, expecting a regular, but froze when I saw Nathan, my husband, standing stiffly by the entrance, his suit jacket hanging awkwardly on his tall frame. He had that look, the one that always preceded bad news. "Julia," he began, his voice soft, but carrying a weight that settled heavily on my chest. "I've been thinking about something. It's about the wedding." I set down the tray with a loud clang that startled both of us. "Brandon's wedding?" I asked, wiping flour-dusted hands on my apron. Nathan nodded, stepping closer. "It's a family tradition," he said, resting his hand on the cold steel of my workbench. "When a Whitaker gets married, we help the couple start their new life." My stomach twisted. I had a bad feeling where this was going. "Your sister got a car. Your cousin got a down payment for a house. What are you suggesting, Nathan?" His eyes softened as if he believed this was reasonable. "Brandon has always dreamed of owning a business. I thought maybe you could gift him Southern Whisk Bakery as a wedding present." I stared at him, blinking slowly as though the words hadn't fully registered. "You want me to give him my bakery? My life's work? The business I built from scratch over 6 brutal years? The bakery that nearly cost me my sanity and my health?" My voice cracked under the weight of disbelief. I clenched the edge of the counter until my knuckles turned white. "Are you insane?" Nathan raised his hands, palms open. "Honey, listen. I know it sounds big, but it's family. Family first, right?" I laughed bitterly. The word family left a bitter taste on my tongue. The bell chimed again. Diana Cross, my best friend and business partner, walked in briskly on her heels. Her sharp green eyes scanned the scene. "What's going on?" she asked, tossing her purse onto the counter. "Just discussing Brandon's wedding gift," Nathan said lightly, brushing imaginary lint from his sleeve. "I need to get to the office. Think about it, sweetheart." He kissed my cheek, but I stiffened and turned away. The moment he left, I grabbed the nearest mixing bowl and flung it into the deep sink. The crash echoed off the tile walls. Diana jumped. "Okay, spill. Now." I stared at the mess in the sink, my chest heaving. "He wants me to give Brandon my bakery as a wedding gift." Diana's jaw dropped. "Tell me you're kidding." "I wish I were." I grabbed a rag and wiped furiously at the spotless counter just to keep my hands busy. "Apparently it's a family tradition to help newlyweds start out. Never mind that I built this place from nothing. Never mind the early mornings, the burnt fingers, the maxed out credit cards, the tears. What did you tell him?" "That I'd think about it." I slammed the rag down. What else could I say? He's been obsessed with Brandon's wedding for months. Diana scoffed, snatching a chocolate chip cookie from the display. "You could have said hell no. This isn't a gift shop, it's your legacy. Brandon's never worked a day in his life. The man thinks baking is just throwing stuff in a bowl and hoping it works." The bell chimed again. Mrs. Peterson, one of my oldest customers, walked in with her granddaughter. I forced a bright smile as I handed over their usual order, a dozen snickerdoodles and 2 blueberry muffins. "Your cookies saved my bridge club meeting last week, Mrs. Peterson beamed. "Everyone wanted your recipe." "Family secret." I winked, though today that word burned. Once they left, Diana jumped onto the counter, ignoring my disapproving glare. "So, what are you going to do?" I started prepping the next day's pastry trays. "I don't know. Nathan's right about one thing. Family is important. But this place, this bakery isn't just a business, it's who I am." "Then don't give it up." "It's not that simple." I paused as a thought began to form. A small, dangerous spark. Unless what?" Diana leaned forward, sensing the shift in my tone. Unless I give it to him, on my terms. I grabbed my phone and pulled up my business documentation. If Nathan wants me to help Brandon start his life, fine. Let's see if Brandon can handle responsibility. Diana's eyes widened as realization dawned. What are you planning? I smiled slowly, the adrenaline already kicking in. I'm going to give Brandon exactly what he wants and exactly what he deserves. Later that evening, I stood in the small but elegant home office of Evelyn Monroe. The walls were lined with cookbooks, framed photos of culinary legends, and certificates that proved she had built an empire of success long before I ever dreamed of opening Southern Whisk. She peered over the rim of her coffee cup, staring at me as though I had just announced I planned to light myself on fire. You're doing what? Her sharp voice echoed off the mahogany bookshelves. I shifted uneasily in the buttery, leather chair across from her desk. I'm going to give Brandon the bakery, but with conditions. Evelyn set down her cup with a thud. Julia, have you lost your mind? You don't owe anyone your business, especially not a spoiled freeloader. It's not as simple as just giving it away, I explained, pulling out a printed draft of the agreement I'd prepared. There will be stipulations, loopholes, and escape clauses. He'll have to work for it. Evelyn adjusted her reading glasses, frowning as she skimmed the document. Then her expression softened slightly. You remembered what I taught you. Never sign anything without an escape clause. I allowed myself a small smile. You're the best mentor I ever had. Just then, the doorbell rang. Evelyn's housekeeper announced that Brandon and Kelsey had arrived for their scheduled wedding cake consultation. I had set this meeting under the pretense of discussing flavors and designs, but my true purpose was far more revealing. Send them in, Evelyn called, shooting me a knowing look. Let's see what your future brother-in-law is made of. Brandon strode in like a peacock on parade. His expensive cologne preceded him by a full 3 feet. Kelsey followed timidly behind, her soft blue eyes flicking nervously between the decor. I studied her delicate frame and wondered if she had any idea of the mess she was about to marry into. Julia! Brandon boomed with forced enthusiasm, reaching to shake my hand. Calvin told me the good news. I can't wait to take Southern Whisk to the next level. I forced a polite smile. That's actually why I wanted to meet. Since you'll be taking over, I thought we should talk about your vision for the bakery. Oh, totally. Brandon flopped into a chair, loosened his tie, and rested one ankle over his knee. First, we get rid of all that old-fashioned homemade stuff. Too slow. We'll bring in frozen bases and pre-made dough. Cuts labor costs in half. Customers won't even notice. I blinked slowly. I could almost hear Evelyn's pen scratching furiously on her legal pad beside me. Our customers come here for the handcrafted quality, I said evenly. Nah, trust me, Brandon waved dismissively. Nobody can tell the difference. We'll raise prices by 50% too. This is Savannah Prime Real Estate. We should charge premium rates. Kelsey's brow furrowed in distress. But I thought you loved the way Julia makes everything from scratch. Business is business, babe. Brandon patted her hand like she was a child. Tough decisions have to be made to maximize profit. I inhaled slowly and pulled out another sheet of paper. Speaking of business decisions, I have the transfer agreement right here. Just a few conditions before you take over. Brandon's confident grin faltered. Conditions? Nothing unreasonable, I replied, sliding the paper across the desk. You'll need to complete a 3-month apprenticeship learning every job in the bakery, pass a basic culinary certification exam, and agree to maintain current quality standards and staffing levels for at least a year. Brandon stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the polished floor. That's ridiculous. I don't need training to run a bakery. It's just mixing stuff together. Then passing the certification shouldn't be a problem, Evelyn added smoothly without looking up. Any competent business owner should understand the product they sell. Don't you agree? Brandon's cheeks flushed an angry red. This isn't what Calvin and I agreed on. Calvin isn't the one giving away her life's work, I said coldly, my voice steeled with finality. These are my terms. Take them or leave them. Brandon's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. He turned abruptly. Kelsey, we're leaving. We'll talk to Nathan. As they stomped out, Evelyn leaned toward me with raised brows. Well, that was illuminating. I smiled tightly as I gathered the papers. Did you see Kelsey's face when he talked about cutting corners? I don't think she had any idea. More importantly, Evelyn gave me a sly look. Did you record all that like I suggested? I tapped my phone. Every word. Good girl. Evelyn smiled approvingly. Now, about that certification requirement. I have a friend who runs the testing center. Should I schedule him for next week? I nodded. Make it Monday. The sooner Brandon shows his true colors, the better. As I drove home under the golden canopy of Savannah's oak trees, my phone buzzed with a text from Kelsey. Can we meet tomorrow? Alone. I smiled grimly at the message. Sometimes the best allies come from the most unexpected places. The next afternoon, I arrived early at Magnolia Cafe, a cozy little spot far from the tourist-filled streets of Savannah. The corner booth I chose was secluded, away from windows and wandering eyes. I sipped my cappuccino slowly, watching the door waiting. Finally, Kelsey walked in, clutching her designer handbag like it was a lifeline. Her eyes scanned the cafe nervously before she slid into the seat across from me. Thank you for meeting me, she said softly. Her fingers fidgeted with the napkin dispenser, her diamond engagement ring catching the light like a cruel joke. I wasn't sure who else to talk to. Of course. I pushed a steaming cup toward her. Cappuccino. 2 sugars, no foam. I remember. Kelsey blinked. You remember my order? I remember everyone's order. I smiled faintly. It's part of running a successful bakery. Her expression faltered at the word successful. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick folder. I found these in Brandon's office last night. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for stamps. I took the folder and opened it. My stomach sank. Bank statements, rejected loan applications, overdue credit cards, and most glaring of all, letters from collection agencies. Red numbers jumped from every page like warnings. He's in serious debt, Kelsey whispered, her voice cracking. Hundreds of thousands, mostly from gambling. He's been lying to everyone. Even his parents think his investment firm is thriving. Does Nathan know? Kelsey shook her head. Brandon keeps everyone in the dark. I thought you should see this. The cafe door chimed, making us both jump. I relaxed instantly when Diana strode in, pulling off her sunglasses with dramatic flair. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was a nightmare. Kelsey stiffened. You knew. Julia and I don't keep secrets from each other, Diana said flatly, sitting down and flipping through the documents. Especially not when someone's trying to steal her business. It's not stealing if I agreed to transfer it, I muttered bitterly. Though now we know why Brandon's so eager to own a profitable bakery. He needs the cash flow. Kelsey sank lower in her seat. He's not a bad person. He's just struggling. Diana arched an eyebrow. Struggling people ask for help. They don't manipulate their fiancé and try to con their brother's wife out of everything she built. My phone buzzed, cutting off our debate. A text from Nathan. Where are you? Brandon's at the bakery for his first training session. I stood abruptly. I have to go. I wasn't expecting him to actually show up. Kelsey grabbed her purse. I want to come. I need to see how he handles this. The bakery was exactly as I had left it. Spotless, warm, and filled with the heavenly scent of rising dough. What wasn't familiar was Brandon, standing in the middle of my kitchen in a sharp-tailored suit, arms crossed, glaring at Maria Gomez, my head baker. These processes are inefficient, Brandon declared as I walked in with Kelsey. We need to streamline, cut costs. Maria, unimpressed, folded her arms. These processes are what make our products special. Brandon scoffed. Do you know how much money we lose making everything from scratch? I stepped in calmly. About 60% less than we'd lose if our customers found out we switched to frozen dough. Brandon spun, his expression souring when he saw Kelsey beside me. What are you doing here? Supporting my future sister-in-law, Kelsey replied coolly. Shouldn't you be learning how to bake? Maria pulled out an apron and handed it to Brandon. First lesson is bread basics. Everyone starts with bread. This is ridiculous, Brandon growled. I'm here to manage, not play baker. Management starts with understanding your product, I said, leaning casually against the workbench. You can't lead what you don't know. Brandon ripped off his suit jacket angrily. I understand plenty. I understand that this place could make triple the profit with half the effort if you weren't so stubborn and old-fashioned. I caught Maria's eye and gave her a tiny nod. Her phone, peeking from her apron pocket, began recording. I smiled sweetly. Why don't you explain your vision? In detail, Brandon launched into his fantasy blueprint, firing half the staff, outsourcing all baking to commercial suppliers, raising prices dramatically, and eliminating our signature handcrafted touches. Kelsey's face turned a ghostly white as he spoke, every sentence digging him deeper into his own grave. The best part, Brandon finished triumphantly, is we can sell most of this outdated equipment. We won't need it once we switch suppliers. I kept my voice calm. Interesting. Would you mind writing all that down in the transfer agreement? Brandon waved dismissively. Why bother? Once the business is mine, I'll do whatever I want. I leaned closer. You'll still be bound by the quality standards clause you agreed to yesterday. Brandon froze. His fake confidence evaporated. We'll discuss this later. Actually, Kelsey said softly, stepping forward, I think I'll stay. I want to learn about bread making. It seems important. Brandon stared at her, stunned. Without a word, he grabbed his jacket and stormed out of the kitchen. I turned to Kelsey. Are you okay? She nodded slowly, accepting the apron Maria handed her, the very one Brandon had refused. Teach me everything. Please. I smiled for the first time that day. As Kelsey began kneading dough beside me, I caught Maria's subtle glance and the quick flash of her phone's screen. Another damning piece of evidence secured. One step closer to exposing the truth. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people reveal themselves. The streetlights cast long shadows over the quiet, brick sidewalks of Savannah as I locked up Southern Whisk Bakery that night. The day had drained me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the game wasn't over. My instincts were right. At 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed with a security alert. Unauthorized login attempt detected from registered IP address. I stared at the message, heart racing. I tapped into the live security feed from my laptop. My blood ran cold. There he was, Brandon. The grainy footage showed him fumbling at the back door with what looked suspiciously like Nathan's spare key. After a few tries, the lock clicked open. He slipped inside and headed straight for my office. Maria, it's happening, I whispered into my phone. Wake up Serena. Tell her to call the police. I'm going in. I grabbed my phone hit record and slipped out into the dark streets. The bakery's soft glow spilled into the alleyway as I crept closer. The faint clack of keyboard keys echoed from inside. I paused at the door, camera rolling. Come on, I heard Brandon mutter desperately. Where are the damn account passwords? I flipped the hallway lights on with a sharp snap. Brandon startled violently, knocking over the desk lamp. His face drained of color when he saw me standing there with my phone aimed directly at him. Julia, he stammered. I was just, checking the numbers for the transfer. Yeah, making sure everything's ready for the big handover. At midnight, during your own bachelor party. I stepped forward slowly, keeping the recording going. With Nathan's key. Calvin knows I'm here, he insisted quickly. Call him. Go ahead. I pressed dial and held my phone on speaker. Calvin answered immediately, the sound of loud music and laughter in the background. Hey babe, everything okay? Is Brandon with you? I asked flatly. A pause. Yeah, he's... Another pause, followed by muffled voices. Wait, has anyone seen Brandon? No. Huh. I guess not. I ended the call and stared Brandon down. Want to try again? Brandon's mask cracked. Desperation oozed from every pore. You don't understand. I just needed access for a few days, just long enough to move some things around. I swear I would have put it back before the transfer. Before you stole my business, you mean? I stepped closer, fury rising in my chest. How much do you owe, Brandon? 50,000. 100. A voice cut through the thick silence from the office doorway. 215,000, plus interest. Kelsey stood frozen in place, tears streaming down her cheeks, holding the folder of damning documents she had shown me earlier. You went through my private papers. Brandon growled, his voice cracking. You've been going through Julia's entire life. Kelsey shot back, her voice sharp and trembling. The wedding's off, Brandon. I'm done. The front bell jingled as Serena burst into the bakery, phone in hand. Cops are 2 minutes out. She flashed me a proud grin. And I've got everything on video. Brandon backed toward the door like a trapped animal. Calvin won't let you do this. We're family. Family doesn't steal from family, I whispered coldly. And Calvin can't stop me from pressing charges. Blue and red lights strobed outside. Brandon bolted toward the back exit, but ran directly into 2 uniformed officers entering through the alley. Brandon Whitaker, one officer said as if reading from a script. You're under arrest for breaking and entering, attempted theft, and violation of a protective business order. They handcuffed him on the spot as Kelsey sobbed quietly beside Serena. I stood frozen, my chest heaving with adrenaline and disbelief as I watched them haul him outside. Serena placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. I nodded numbly, feeling the heavy finality of the moment. My phone buzzed again. Nathan. I let it go to voicemail. There would be a time for that conversation, but not tonight. We finished giving our statements to the officers and locked up the bakery under Savannah's starry sky. The soft breeze cooled my flushed face as I watched Serena drive Kelsey home. I walked the winding path back toward my house alone. The streets were silent, as if the city itself held its breath. I typed a short message to my lawyer and attached all the video files. Subject: Brandon incident evidence. Terminate transfer agreement. My phone buzzed again and again. Nathan. 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 I stared at the screen and finally texted back. We need to talk. Not tonight. The wedding was in 3 days. Everything had collapsed, yet somehow watching it crumble felt like justice being served, one brutal piece at a time. The next evening, I sat on Evelyn's shaded garden patio. Spanish moss swayed gently in the humid savanna breeze as she refilled my wine glass with a soft clink. The air smelled of jasmine and whetstone. He made bail an hour ago, Evelyn said grimly. Your lawyer just called me. Calvin paid it, of course. Family first. I let out a long, bitter laugh and twisted my wedding ring absent-mindedly. Have I talked to Nathan yet? No. He's been sleeping in the guest room since the arrest. Says I betrayed the family by calling the police on his brother. Evelyn leaned back in her chair. And letting Brandon steal your life's work wouldn't have been betrayal. My phone vibrated angrily across the table. You'll regret this tomorrow. I promise. Brandon again. I showed Evelyn the message. She snorted. Is that supposed to be a threat? I scrolled to another notification from Kelsey. The loan sharks are circling. They've already come to his apartment twice. I'm scared. I stared at the screen and whispered, not my problem anymore. Evelyn rested her hand gently on my wrist. Are you still planning to go to the wedding? I nodded slowly. I have to. I'm catering. 500 cupcakes already paid for, plus the massive wedding cake Kelsey and I made together. Evelyn's eyes suddenly twinkled with mischief. I may have an idea. Before I could reply, my phone rang again. Nathan's name filled the screen. With a resigned sigh, I stepped inside to answer. Where are you? Nathan's voice demanded. At Evelyn's. We need to talk about tomorrow. Brandon says he'll make things right. He's agreed to get help, pay back anything he tried to take. Let it go, Julia. Let's just move past this. Move past this. My voice rose as fury overtook exhaustion. He broke into my business, tried to rob me blind, threatened me, and you want me to forget it? He's my brother, Julia, and I'm your husband. You were ready to sacrifice my entire business for your brother's mistakes, I said coldly. Did you know about the debts? The gambling? The loan sharks? Silence. That's what I thought. I hung up and walked back to the patio, hands shaking. Evelyn didn't even ask. Tell me about the plan, I murmured. 3 hours later, we stood in the grand reception hall with Serena and Kelsey, surveying the chaos of last-minute wedding preparations. The huge space sparkled with white linens, towering centerpieces, and gaudy golden accents. Are you sure about this? Kelsey asked, adjusting a display, card with trembling fingers. It seems a little intense, Serena added with a crooked grin. But then again, finding out your fiancé is a lying gambling addict who tried to destroy your bakery probably justifies a little drama. I showed them Brandon's latest text. Tomorrow's going to be a day everyone remembers. Hope you're ready for some public humiliation. Let him try, Serena said confidently. We're ready. Kelsey brushed her fingertips over the intricate buttercream flowers she had piped onto the wedding cake. I can't believe I almost married him. You deserve better, I said gently, pulling her into a side hug. Someone who values you more than what you can provide for them. Just then, Serena's phone lit up with a news alert. She gasped, then grinned wide. Look what just went online. She held out the screen. Local bakery owner thwarts attempted corporate theft. Family scandal rocks Savannah society. The article included quotes from customers, a timeline of Brandon's arrest, and even stills from the security footage. Who leaked this? I whispered. Serena winked. Anonymous tip. The whole town will know by morning. Evelyn stepped into the hall, holding a stack of papers triumphantly. The judge just signed these. You're officially protected from any retaliation. I took the restraining order, feeling its weight in my hands. Then we're ready. As I packed the final boxes of cupcakes later that night, my phone buzzed one last time. Nathan again. Whatever you're planning tomorrow, please don't. For me. I stared at the message, heart-numb, then typed 3 words. For me first. I powered off the phone and inhaled deeply. Tomorrow wouldn't be the wedding Brandon expected. Not even close. The next morning, the sun cast long golden streaks through the stained glass windows of the historic Savannah Church. I stood at the back of the sanctuary arranging the final display of 500 immaculate cupcakes. The whispers of curious guests filled the air like soft static. The scandal had spread like wildfire overnight. The room vibrated with anticipation. Serena rushed over, breathless in her emerald bridesmaid dress. They're still going through with it, she whispered. Brandon convinced Kelsey's parents it's just a misunderstanding. I calmly straightened a crooked cupcake. Of course he did. Where's Kelsey? locked in the bridal suite. She says she's getting ready, but everything's in place. I nodded, my heart hammering with cold determination. Behind me, Nathan appeared suddenly in his tailored best man suit. His face was drawn, his dark eyes pleading. Julia, please, can we talk? Whatever you're planning, don't. Brandon's agreed to drop the bakery. We can move past this. I jerked my arm free from his grasp. Move past it? Like you moved past telling me about his gambling debts? Or the loan sharks who visited our home yesterday? Nathan's face paled. How did you? Our security cameras work just fine. I smoothed my dress. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a wedding cake to finish. Julia, don't do this. Some things are more important than business. I spun sharply to face him. You're right. Things like honesty, respect, loyalty, all the things you and Brandon seem to have forgotten. At that moment, the heavy oak doors of the church burst open. Brandon stormed down the aisle, tuxedo rumpled, eyes wild and bloodshot. Where is she? He growled. The groom isn't supposed to see the bride before the ceremony, someone whispered nervously. Not Kelsey. Her. Brandon jabbed an accusing finger at me. We need to talk. Now. From the side of the church, Evelyn's voice cut through the tension like a knife. The only people Mr. Whitaker needs to speak with are the officers here to discuss his violation of the restraining order. 2 uniformed officers stepped into view. Gasps rippled through the pews. Brandon sneered. You think you've won? I still have one card to play. The bridal suite door opened softly. All heads turned. Kelsey emerged gracefully in her wedding gown, her back straight, her face serene. Instead of walking toward Brandon, she crossed the aisle and took her place beside me. Sorry, Brandon, she said quietly but firmly. I'm not your card to play anymore. What the hell is going on? Nathan murmured, looking back and forth between us. Kelsey nodded at Serena, who quickly connected her phone to the church projector. The screen flickered to life. First, grainy footage of Brandon breaking into the bakery. Second, audio of his voice boasting about using my bakery to pay off debts. Third, Brandon's threats against me. Finally, a damning clip of Brandon and Nathan discussing how to pressure me into signing the transfer documents. A collective gasp rippled through the church. Kelsey's parents sat in stunned silence. Turn it off. Brandon bellowed. This is my wedding day. Kelsey faced him squarely. This was supposed to be our wedding day. You turned it into a con game, just like everything else in your life. She removed her engagement ring and set it calmly on the pew beside her. You can't do this. Brandon shrieked, his voice breaking. I'll be ruined. You did this to yourself, I said softly. The moment you decided my dream was worth less than your debts. The officers stepped forward again. Mr. Whitaker, you're under arrest for violating the protective order. As they led him away, Nathan grabbed my hand desperately. Julia, I'm sorry. I didn't know how bad it was. I just wanted to help my brother. I pulled my hand away, my voice cold and even. We'll talk later, Nathan. Right now, there are 500 people here expecting a celebration. Nathan looked around helplessly. But there's no wedding. Kelsey looped her arm through mine. But there's a party. A celebration of truth, justice, and really good cake. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Guests burst into relieved laughter as upbeat music filled the air. The weight of weeks of tension lifted. I cut the first slice of the towering wedding cake with a flourish. As I handed out pieces to smiling guests, I caught Evelyn's approving nod from across the room. Sometimes the sweetest victory isn't getting even. It's standing up for what's right. The reception hall buzzed with chatter as guests enjoyed the food and the surreal, scandalous joy of a wedding-turned celebration of freedom. Maggie's mother approached me with misty eyes. This is the best non-wedding I've ever attended, she chuckled. I smiled and plated another slice. Try the raspberry layer. Kelsey made it herself. Her mother dabbed her eyes with a tissue. I didn't know she was learning to bake. I glanced at Kelsey laughing with Serena near the punch table. She's learned a lot these past weeks. About baking, about herself, about choosing better men. A commotion by the entrance pulled my attention. Nathan stumbled back into the room, face pale. Ivan's being processed downtown, he said, breathless. They're charging him with violation of the restraining order, attempted theft, and corporate espionage. Corporate espionage, someone whispered. Evelyn stepped forward, smoothly, tablet in hand. He bribed the health inspector to plant fake violations at Southern Whisk. I recorded the entire conversation. Nathan shook his head, devastated. I didn't know about that part, but you knew about the rest. My voice turned sharp, slicing through the joyous air like a blade. The debts, the threats, the plan to take my bakery. You stood by and watched. The projector flicked back on. Serena's voice echoed through the room. We have one more video to show. First, security footage of Brandon's late-night break-in. Then, Brandon bragging about his plans. Finally, Nathan and Brandon conspiring. Nathan nodding grimly as Brandon outlined the pressure campaign against me. Turn it off. Nathan begged. I stepped forward into the spotlight. No, everyone here deserves to know what family first really meant to both of you. The final frame froze on Brandon's enraged face. The lights came up. Nathan looked ashen. Julia, please. I'll do anything to make this right. I shook my head slowly, pulling an envelope from my purse. You had choices. You could have told me the truth. You could have helped him get real help. Instead, you betrayed my trust. I had these drawn up the night he broke into my shop. I waited to see if you'd choose me. The church held its collective breath. I placed the divorce papers on the table. You don't mean it, Nathan whispered hoarsely. I met his gaze steadily. Some things, once broken, can't be put back together. Evelyn stepped up beside me, resting her hand firmly on my shoulder. It's time for the final announcement. I turned to face the crowd. Southern Whisk Bakery isn't just my business, it's my life's work. As of this morning, it's now protected under a corporate trust. It can never be transferred or sold without unanimous board approval. Who's on the board? Nathan rasped. I smiled warmly at my allies. Evelyn, Serena, Kelsey, women who know the value of protecting dreams. The room erupted in applause. Kelsey's mother hugged me tightly, tears streaming. You saved my daughter from a terrible mistake. I hugged her back. Actually, she saved herself. We all did. The early morning sun poured golden light through the tall windows of Southern Whisk Bakery. Dust motes danced in the air as I unlocked the front door, breathing in the comforting scent of warm vanilla and fresh dough. For the first time in weeks, I felt calm, grounded. The bell above the door jingled. Kelsey walked in wearing her new bakery apron, her expression a mix of excitement and disbelief. Ready for your first official day as partner. I teased, handing her a small velvet box with her own set of keys. Partner, she repeated softly, as if the word was too fragile to say aloud. She stared at the keys, then at me. I still can't believe this is real. Believe it. I smiled. I reached under the counter and pulled out the freshly signed partnership agreement. You earned this, not just with the incredible recipes you've learned to create, but with your integrity, your strength. You stood up when most people would have folded. The bell jingled again. Serena and Evelyn entered carrying champagne and orange juice. You can't start a new chapter without mimosas, Serena declared, setting out flutes on the marble countertop. And paperwork, Evelyn added with a grin, pulling a thick folder from her bag. The judge signed everything this morning. The corporate trust is officially active. The bakery is legally untouchable. I took a deep breath as relief washed over me. What about Brandon? He took a plea deal, Evelyn replied. Mandatory counseling, full restitution of his gambling debts, and a permanent restraining order from you and the bakery. Kelsey's voice softened. And Nathan? I looked down at my now bare ring finger. He signed the divorce papers yesterday. He's moving to his parents' beach house to reflect on his choices. Serena's phone buzzed. She gasped and held up the screen. You're going to want to see this. The front page of the Savannah Chronicle filled the screen, rising from the ashes, how one woman's stand against family pressure created a community legacy. They had interviewed Mrs. Peterson and several of my regulars. Evelyn read aloud one quote from the article. Southern Whisk isn't just a bakery, she read. It's proof that standing up for yourself can be the greatest act of love, not just for yourself, but for everyone watching who needed to see it done. I swallowed hard, unable to stop the tears stinging my eyes. The bell chimed again, and Maria entered with the morning crew, all of them proudly wearing brand new aprons embroidered with our new slogan, Southern Whisk Bakery, where dreams rise. The first batch of orders is already coming in, Maria said, waving her tablet, including a catering request from the mayor's office for the city's Small Business Award ceremony. Serena elbowed me gently. The same event where you're being honored as Woman Entrepreneur of the Year. I blinked. What? Kelsey squealed. We nominated you weeks ago. The committee was blown away by how you handled the recent family situation with such grace and strength, and still served the best pastries in town. I laughed and shook my head in disbelief. The sunlight caught the crystal glasses as we toasted, tiny rainbows dancing across the countertop. Outside, a line of customers had already formed, their faces pressed eagerly against the window. Before I opened the door, I pulled a tiny box from under the register and handed it to Kelsey. She opened it to reveal a delicate gold necklace with a tiny whisk charm. On the back was a simple engraving. She read it aloud softly, tears in her eyes. Sometimes the sweetest success is saying no to the wrong thing and yes to the right ones. She threw her arms around me. I hugged her tightly, feeling more proud than I ever had in my life. The bell chimed once more. Nathan stood awkwardly at the entrance, rumpled and exhausted, holding a stack of unopened mail. I thought you might need these. I took the envelopes, nodded politely. Thank you. I'm leaving town today, he said, glancing around at the strong, smiling circle of women that now stood at my side. You've built something amazing here. I'm sorry I ever made you doubt it. I nodded once. Sometimes you have to lose something to understand its true value. Nathan hesitated, then left quietly, fading out into the morning bustle of the square. Kelsey squeezed my hand. Ready to open? I looked around the bakery I had fought so hard to protect. The display cases filled with pastries Kelsey and I had prepared together, the wall of customer photos Maria had arranged, the bright new aprons my team proudly wore, and the women who had stood beside me when everything had threatened to crumble. I smiled. Actually, I think we need one more toast. Serena refilled the glasses as I raised mine. To Southern Whisk, not just for success in business, but for choosing ourselves, for standing our ground, for building something no one can take away from us. Kelsey raised her glass. To fresh starts. Serena grinned. To unbreakable bonds. Evelyn lifted her flute. To women supporting women. The glasses clinked gently as the morning sun bathed us in light. The line outside grew longer, but inside, for just a moment, time stood still. I unlocked the door, flipped the sign to open, and breathed in the scent of possibility. Today wasn't just another day at the bakery. It was the first day of everything we had fought to protect, and it smelled like success.